right? So they provide the same information for hedge funds industry, for private equity industry, for investment banking. Hi guys, and welcome to MentorMe's YouTube channel for another video on interview preparation. And today the company that I will be covering is Delopa, and some of the people who are living in the northern part of India, specifically in the NCR region, might be able to recollect this name because it frequently does hire for freshers as well as a lot of MBA candidates coming from various types and categories of colleges, right? So now let's talk about first what is going to get covered in the video. And as again, in all the videos, we'll be covering the basic role. I'll be giving you a brief on what Delopa does. I'll be also talking about the interview process. We'll go through some questions which will give you a benchmark on what kind of practice you need to do. And finally, I'll give you some tips at the end so that you are successful in the interview, right? So let's first understand what does Delopa do. So Delopa is a data aggregator, right? See, because in the finance world, data is the biggest problem for every company, right? And not just data, because again, the data has to be cleaned and only relevant data needs to be used, right? So that is where a lot of fund managers, a lot of equity analysts will end up wasting their time, because they will have to get the economic data from somewhere. They might have to get the financial banking data from somewhere else. And also, not all the information is clearly available when you're trying to analyze the company's annual report, right? So some of the information are you need to get it from secondary and tertiary sources. So that is what the business is about, right? So they provide the same information for hedge funds industry, for private equity industry, for investment banking also, and for equity research analysts also. But particularly what they try to do, or they try to sell as a product, is that the updating of models. Because once an equity analyst has made the model, he has to again update the data basis what new information is coming, right? And that's why they call it as a supercharging financial modeling with artificial intelligence, right? So if you can see the screen now, you can see this a GIF. I've just posted a GIF which is actually posted on the website on how using a basic plugin they're able to update all the information which has come in the market, right? So that is something that what they consider as a USP. Now, obviously, on the validity of the business is not what we are trying to discuss here, but we're discussing here the kind of job opportunity which is there, right? So now, if you look at the job opportunity, now you can clearly understand and relate what is going on, right? So if in the job description, it is written that building and updating financial models, sourcing data. I think that is the major part of the work which goes on at Delopa, analyzing financial data and records of companies, because that is the information that you need to take and put it in your data platform, provide quality data and analysis to make the research process more efficient, right? So if you can see here, again, it's very, very similar to what kind of job is there with Visible Alpha, right? Because mostly Visible Alpha, Delopa and even InSync Analytics are doing more or less the same kind of a business, in which they're providing this data to companies and to fund managers, buy side, sell side, both, whoever needs it, majorly in the European market, right? Now the qualification I've seen mostly Delopa has a very this filter of only taking or keeping MBA as the criteria for selection, right? Not really MBA from a very premier colleges, because the salary is obviously on a medium level. It's not really a premium salary that they offer, but it's an excellent opportunity for a person who is just getting started in finance to build some experience out here, right? So let's move into the interview process. Now, obviously, very simple interview process. The only added on step is that they have 2 face-to-face rounds, which is obviously their choice. But their online test seems to be the biggest hurdle, because it's got about 120 questions which have to be completed. 190 questions, I believe, in a span of 120 minutes has to be completed, which has a mix of a lot of type of questions. So let's talk about that first. Okay, so you can see here there are about 40 questions in attention to detail, which is basically a quantitative aptitude kind of questions. Then you have reasoning questions of 30, Excel around 30 questions, and financial aptitude, which is the largest part of this test, is about 90 questions, which has to be completed within 60 minutes, right? So total of 190 questions to be done in 120 minutes, which is a big challenge. And that's where a lot of candidates tend to get rejected, right? Because although you might be able to solve these questions, but you will also have to solve it in a limited time, right? Now let's look at some questions out here which will give you a benchmark in terms of how to do the preparation for this interview, right? So if Noida is written as OPJ, so this is basically a more of a reasoning question. It should be simple if you have done, if you have got into MBA colleges through preparation for CAT examinations. So this should not be very difficult, right? But all those who have not, or probably have forgotten these kind of questions, then it's very simple. If let's say Noida is written as OPJEB, so basically you can see some trend out here, right? So N is represented by the next letter O, right? So there's a +1 gap. From O is represented by a letter forward to that, which is P. I is represented by J. So there's a difference of 1 in each of these letters, right? So then if you were to arrange this in terms of for what kind of code would you have to write for Delhi, then it would be just the same, one letter forward, right? So E will become F, L will become M, H will become I, and I will become J, right? So that's what is the first kind of a question, majorly coded, you can say coded, coded deduction or something like that, or you can call it as coded deduction only, right? Now out here again, number series tends to be a very easy place to test because it does not have a lot of information and can quickly give you whether the person really understands or has enough aptitude or not, right? So out here you need to look at the pattern out here, right? So if you can see here 2 and 5, so there's a difference of 3, right? Then there is 12.5 which is there, which is around 7.5 is the difference, right? Now here I would not say that any person who has not practiced aptitude questions, even if he's very intelligent, will be able to figure this out. Maybe he will be able to figure this out, but he will need time. That is why practice is required. It's not that it's just the intelligence, but also intelligence comes with practice, which makes things much more easier to attempt, right? Now the idea out here is that if you are looking at this properly, then what you are saying is you're multiplying 2 with 2.5, right? So that basically is giving you 5. Then if you multiply 5 with 2.5, right? So what are you doing? You're getting what? 12.5. So basically the trend out here is that each number is getting multiplied by 2.5, right? And that is how you can get a number out here as well, by multiplying 12.5, right, with 2.5, right? So that will be somewhere around, I believe 32.5 should basically be the answer. No, not 32.5. The answer will be 31.5. I'm not doing the mathematics out here. I'm just giving you the logic, right? Similarly, if you can see here, what number would come? This should be pretty simple because you can see, on every number there's a gap of 5 which is coming up, which means our answer is going to be 25. So number series is something that you can practice for this aptitude type of questions, right? So number series, letter and symbol series, and verbal classification, the first question that we did, is something, or sometimes they might also give you an odd spelling that you need to figure out, or an odd word which does not fit the series is what you need to figure out, right? Now Excel is mostly very simple. If you have in your any of your financial modeling courses that you've done till date, if they've taught you properly, then these things should be pretty easy, right? For example, what is the shortcut key to lock the cell references in a formula? It's pretty simple. It is F4, right? What are the shortcut keys for auto sum? So it's obviously alt plus equal to sign, right? So if you've worked with Excel in a very detailed manner at the application level, then it should be pretty easy, right? Then they might give you an image and they might say that what kind of a formula should be actually put here, right? So if you see, there is 2 columns, weight and score, and they want to do a cross multiplication and add. So obviously the function is sum product, that's correct, but which are the rows that we're going to take? So we're going to take 6C2 to 6,4, right? Because B2 to B4 and C2 to C4. That means this is going to be our right answer, right? Similarly, now if you look at the next question out here, this is basically when we are trying to test whether you understand some logical operators functions in Excel or not, right? Now you can see out here that the condition says that if the IRR is 10% or above, right, then you want it to be shown as accept, else reject, right? But out here in the question, it is not just testing for logical operator, but it is also testing you whether you understand whatever you said, you know, using of dollar signs correctly, right? So if you can see that we want to, what does it say at the end, which can be copied down to cell 3 to C5. That means you want to drag it vertically down, C2 to C5, right? That means there is a movement of, when you're going from up to down, basically there's a row movement, right? Now, of course, when you're selecting, when you're comparing B and when you're comparing E, right, you want the B row data to move down, obviously, because otherwise you'll not be able to test different kinds of returns. But when it comes to E, that's the decision rule, you really don't want it to move vertically down, right? So that means E should have a row dollar sign which will restrict that movement from happening. So the answer will be this, right? So if B2 is greater than equal to E2. Now this is not right because there's a column dollar sign here. This is the correct answer, right? You can also use obviously complete fix. That is also correct. But probably in the spirit of the question, they want to check whether you understand the movements of dollar sign, right? Now the finance aptitude test basically is just like any other finance aptitude questions which come into any companies wherever you are given interview, and the focus is generally on income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow from the understanding of calculation and interlinkages, right? So for example, here it is given beginning retained earning is 40,000, ending retained earning is 58,000. Now it clearly says it's obviously related to the balance sheet, right? In the balance sheet, now you have your retained earnings, right? So if I were to put 2 years, 2018 and 2019, right? So, and if we are sitting in 2019, right? And let's say there is 2020 also, right? So that means whatever 2018 retained earning is there, which is given as beginning retained earning is 40,000, right? And ending retained earning is of 58,000, right? Now in 2019, obviously, there must be some net income that is getting asked. But in the same year, dividends have been reduced by minus 16,000, right? Now the question is asking calculate this, right? So it's pretty simple, and you can also try to remember this or try to practice this from the formula perspective also, that ending retained earning is beginning retained earning. That means ending retained earning is beginning retained earning plus net income for this year, right? And minus your dividends. So if you plug in the numbers, you should easily get it, right? So 58,000 is the ending retained earnings, 40,000 is the beginning retained earning plus net income, which is what we have to find, and minus 16,000, right? If you rearrange the question, you should get the answer. So again, these are ratio based questions. So common size balance sheet is obviously when you're looking at balance sheet, you want to find out as a percentage of assets, right? Because equity would be wrong. If it was equity plus liability, then yes, it's correct. But generally, assets is the total assets is equal to liability plus equity. That was a basic equation getting tested in this question, right? Let's look at some ratio analysis question again here. So now they've given you some confusing data. They've said that they purchased 140 million of inventory. So that means they've given you during 2007, they've purchased some 140 million inventory. For the year just ended, Brownfield reported cost of goods sold. So for the year ended, the COGS is given as 130 million, and inventory at year end, that means ending inventory, is given as 45 million. Now, obviously, this information is irrelevant because your ending retained earning would reflect all of the changes in inventory, right? So the cost inventory turnover is nothing but 130 over 45, right? So that's some ratio analysis questions. So if I have to summarize all of this in one slide, so my suggestion would be to solve more questions related to income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow, because that is where mostly people will have difficulties, right? Because the way income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow gets taught in classes in colleges is not at an application level. Some colleges might do a good job, but most of the colleges really don't do a good job in teaching the crux of how the interlinkages actually happen, right? Although they have the subject, right? Also understand the application level of ratios, not just understanding or remembering the formulas and then just blabbering out in the interview, but also understanding what does it mean. So for example, in the last slide, if I said that the cost of the inventory turnover is, let's say, 5, what does it mean, right? So that is what you need to answer in the real interview, right? And I have a thorough knowledge of interlinkages between financial statements. That means questions like, if let's say we depreciated, I'm just giving an example here. So if we depreciated 10 million less, right, in the income statement incorrectly, then my question would be, how will it affect the balance sheet, how will it affect the cash flow statement, and how will it affect the income tax, right? So that is what is I mean by interlinkages and understanding the real logic between financial statements. So that was a very summarized short video on the Delopa Research Associate interview preparation. I hope you liked this video, and if you liked it, please do subscribe to the channel and share with your friends who might actually need this kind of interview preparation. And I will see you again with another interview preparation video next week.